Hey viewers, welcome back to Ray of All Trades. We're working on a Toro Z Master. The carburetor isn't sealing up, so what's occurring is all of the gas is leaking into the crankcase while it sits overnight. It has the Kawasaki FH680V motor, V for vertical. I've already changed this carburetor. I've tried to rebuild this carburetor one time. It needs a new needle and seat is what it is. Everything was sealed up on the bench, looked really good. Obviously, you want to make sure that your tanks are venting properly because too much pressure being built up from the sunlight would cause excessive pressure. It can actually push past the needle and seat. But the first time I did it, I took off the muffler, I took off this counterweight, brackets, you name it, just to be able to get to the bolts on the carburetor. I think this time I'm actually going to attack it from a different direction. I think I'm going to attack it from the top. I think that might make it a little bit easier on me. There's one way to find out, right? So let's get this air intake boot off of here first. Okay. Then we want to pull off this bracket that's holding the air filter assembly on. So 12 millimeter. A couple of 10 millimeter bolts holding in the fuel pump. And then buried down in there is a 10 millimeter bolt on that side and one on this side that attaches to that bracket that comes down. Let me get those out. I'm going to loosen those two up and get the electric ratchet to get down inside there. There's one. And number two. Let's pull this off. All right, we're going to take off the protective cover. All right, some 4 millimeter Allen wrenches. Let's get this oil reservoir out the way to 11 millimeters or 7/16. Just push it out the side, make sure the cap's on tight so it doesn't leak. And it looks like I've got 4 10 millimeter bolts that surround this. One of them is holding in the oil dipstick. Just need to loosen them. And that should lift right off. I shut off the fuel supply. Let's get rid of these tie wraps. So that the wires are free from the intake manifold. Let's disconnect the two hoses off the carburetor. Alright, let me get y'all down here so you can see. Okay, there is a clip. Well, first off, there's a spring. So this spring goes over the top of this metal bracket. So let me find something to pull that loose. You see that? The spring comes off just like that. And we're going to pull back that piece of metal right there, and then this slides right out. That's the governor linkage. And then the same thing occurs right here for your choke linkage. I just lifted it out and then this choke linkage fell right off. On this side over here, we have the fuel solenoid. It's literally just a plug. Pulls out right there. And then the way we're going to attack this one, instead of pulling all this off from the back, because what occurs is this muffler is in the way. Well, the only way to get that muffler off is disconnect from the bottom of the heads, disconnect all of your metal back here in the back, then you can pull the carburetor off this way. I just wanted to try to do it a different way. Now this time I'm going to attack it from taking off the intake manifold, and I'll take the whole carburetor. I'll take this coil wire loose so I can get to that bolt easier. Got some loose dirt right here, so let me cover up this carburetor, get some compressed air and clean that out a little bit so that this dirt doesn't fall down in the intake. As easy as those came off, I fully expected there to be O-rings on there, but nope, it was just a gasket. It wasn't very tight, so surprising. Let's put this on the bench and swap the carburetor. All right, let's see what we have here. Okay, carburetor should slide right off now. Intake manifold, carburetor, gasket. So the problem with this one is that the needle and seat weren't sealing up properly. I cleaned it all out. And it continued to leak. So let me show you what the problem is and show you why I'm changing it. This is what the inside of it looks like. So you got this gasket, you got all of those passages that you have to clean out. I cleaned all those out. The issue is this piece right here. So the fuel has an opportunity to come through here, fuel inlet, and it comes into the bowl and then gets sucked up through these passages into the motor. So let me push this out, I'll show you what I'm talking about. So when you take this out, this is your needle, and then that right there is your seat. I put those together and let gravity decide, you know, will this thing seal up? And it did. It would seal up for air. It wasn't leaking, but I let the machine sit for a little bit, and next thing you know, it was leaking. So anyway, if you can get yours to seal up and clean up, this plastic seat and this plastic needle with the rubber tip is what's actually, leaking and letting fuel fill up the bowl. Anyhow, I recommend if you are going to replace one of these, take all these gaskets and save them. They're actually, the gaskets are probably in good shape, because inevitably what happens, somebody will use carb cleaner on one of these gaskets and it'll change the shape of it immediately. And then you have to put it in some hot water and attempt to get it back into shape. But it's good to have these things on hand. So let's see, I got a new set of gaskets. New fuel filter, and a new carburetor. Let's see if this holds up. Oh, that fell out. And that one. Let's do some quick comparing. So far, so good. Yep, that looks good. That looks good. Yep, that looks good. Looks like what these are anchors for those metal tabs that come off of that one, that anchor that rod into place. So I'm just going to snap these in place. Then it goes into there and just snaps into this little groove right here. Let's get this old gasket peeled off, get it cleaned up, and then we'll put new gaskets right on this block spacer. Let me get a gasket scraper and get this thing cleaned up. All right, let's get these two snaps in place. One there. And one there. That's going to be our choke linkage. It's going to go into that hole, and then this is going to snap onto that bar. And the same thing back here with the governor linkage. All right, let's get it put back on. All right, even though it wasn't sealed up that great, because I broke those seals and I don't have new gaskets to put in place, I'm going to use a little bit of 1184 gasoline resistant sealer. In case I have any imperfections. Let me get that plug wire put back on before I forget it. Solenoid wire is keyed, so just get that plugged back in. Choke lever is on the wrong side. Need to snap it from the other side. Our governor linkage should come up on the inside here. Stab through that hole. Got that put back in place, so that little clip goes around that arm, and I had to push it through after the fact, which you shouldn't do, right? That the fact that the arm goes in there should be what's holding the tabs apart. So let's verify that that still works. Okay, now let's get the governor linkage on. All right, so it stabs into that hole, and then I just snap it on right there. And then this spring is going to go up onto this hook right here now. I hope y'all saw that. My head wasn't in the way. All right, so anyway, that spring is attached over this black hook that came with the carburetor. The governor rod goes in through this hole, and then it snaps in place right there. So, breather. My fuel line, I'm going to go ahead and hook the fuel line up. I don't know if I'm not positive if I'm going to have to push it back out of the way or not. So let's just go ahead and get it hooked up. Let's get our wires fastened back up here. Okay, make some tie wraps. All right, carburetor's on. Let's get the cover put back on. Tighten up those 4 cover bolts. Oil reservoir. Air filter box. You have to make sure that it drops in behind those tabs in the back. Something like that. One bolt there. All right, this hose right here goes to the bottom of the fuel pump. That's actually what drives your fuel pump. Plug that back in. We got this one 10mm bolt that's longer than the other one with a washer on it. I'm thinking somebody might have already been in here because I don't believe that one to be factory. I'm just going to start everything and then tighten them up. Okay, they're all started. Well, being that I've changed out that carburetor, Well, I had it off 2 times within a couple of weeks. I'm going to say that doing from the top side was probably about half the length of time as going from the bottom side. Because of the issue that I had, this right here is filled up to about right here. And basically that's not oil, that's gasoline. So the oil's still down there, but it is filled with gasoline. So make sure you don't start it until you get that oil changed out. All right, this style has a hose attachment that you can put on like I did here. Yeah, look at that. I don't know if y'all can see it, but that's basically gasoline pouring out of that thing. Coat the new oil filter with oil. Spin it on hand tight. Let's go ahead and lock this back up. So you just push in and give it a little bit of a turn. Oil capacity is just under 2 quarts, 1.8 liters. And to properly check the oil level, do not thread this. You just set it right on top, pull it up. And it needs to be right there at the full mark. Might be just a hair over full right now. I haven't started it yet. All right, I'm gonna turn the fuel back on. Let's fire it up for a second. Choke. I don't know if y'all can see the smoke coming out of the tailpipe from when it was flooded. So let's check the level. She's spot on. All right. The only thing I can do is let it sit. It took a couple days the first time to get it to act up. So let me let it sit for a couple days and I'll bring you guys back. All right, so she's been sitting for 3 days. Let's unscrew it and wipe it down because you get an accurate reading. And it is right where I left it. Right there between the 2 L's in full, which is slightly over full, by the way. But that's where I had left it, just because I added a little bit too much. I just wanted to make sure that before I went through all the extra trouble that I didn't have any other problems. Yep. Doesn't smell like gas. Right amount of oil. I think we got it fixed. So I'm gonna get a siphon tube and pull a little bit of that oil out of there. Then we'll get this monster back to cutting grass. Hope y'all got something out of the video. Really appreciate you hanging out, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.